Having a day and a half or 2 days to kind of reflect on the Arizona game, what are some of your takeaways, and what do you kind of see as the biggest things in the next 2 days you have to do before Washington State?
Well, I mean, I think it's been a little bit eye-opening for us. I don't think it's time to jump ship and try to recreate the wheel at this point of the season. It was a good old-fashioned beatdown. And really, I think, I don't remember exactly, 12, 14 minutes into the game, well, pretty much the first half was a competitive game. So looking at our clips, had about 40 offensive, 40 defensive that we watched with the team this morning. There was some good stuff that we did as well. And first and foremost is the level of physicality in that game. And, from top to bottom, they threw the first punch a lot of times in a specific play, and we reacted, and that was a combination, I think, the physicality and the rebounds. And then when you combine that with the fact that I thought McConnell and Ashley had a terrific first half, those guys I think had 22 of their first half points between them, was really hard. McConnell made some great plays. He's a good point guard, a senior point guard. And as I'm looking, we were trying to make adjustments at halftime. I'm watching the film. There was 3 or 4 of his baskets in the first half where you say, you know what, that was pretty good defense. It was just better offense. And sometimes you kind of have to give a guy accolades when he needs them rather than thinking, it's a fail, as my kids would say. So it was a combination. I thought the first half with that, and then having them pound us on the glass when they did miss, getting second shots, that really took a lot of air out of our sails. There was a stretch where I think they scored 8 out of 9 possessions, and that puts a lot of heat on your offense. When you're dealing with that punch in the stomach over and over again, to where you're taking it out of the net, you got to go down against a really good defensive team. I thought that type of impact on our offense was it really started with our inability to get a defensive rebound.
Obviously, Arizona won the physical battle last year in the Pac-12 tournament. I'm wondering, you focus a lot on physicality with the SEAL training and boxing and all that kind of stuff. It's not like this is a new focus for you. How does this team compare to last year, overall, Arizona game aside, in terms of physicality and toughness? Yeah.
Well, I'm never going to be happy with where we are, but we're certainly much improved. I think Chris gives us a level of physicality at the 4 spot. We weren't completely overmatched starting this game. When you looked at matchups, you look at individuals across the board. We did have DeLon starting on Stanley Johnson, who's playing the 2 for him, and Jefferson's at the 3. So we're tougher than we've been in the past. I don't think you can ever be tough enough. That's one of those things that you just, we work hard, but again, we've got to be much more physical. There were some clips, if you watch that game, that under normal circumstances aren't, a normal basketball play that got a little physical. It got carried away, and I'm not here to imply that the referees did a bad job. But you've got to be ready under those bright lights when the game takes it to another level, which we don't tolerate in a practice setting. You can't play that hard and physical. It's like, okay, how are we going to respond? And I thought that's where we got a little bit overwhelmed and weren't able to capture that. We need to create that environment a little bit more in our practice setting, probably, and not blow the whistles and maybe escalate the contact. And I think you can always get a little bit tougher. Looking in a lot of the clips, Matt, it's crazy, and I write it on the board just about every game. Everything defensively always starts with the stance, and that you've got to be down and you've got to be ready. And there were a lot of clips, whether it was a block out or penetration or whatever, where we're standing up, and then all of a sudden you can see frame by frame where we got to get down and react. And just as I wrote on the board, we can't be reactors in today's game. We've got to be the actors. And it was just the opposite for them, where they were making that initial surge and we were constantly reacting. But back to your physical thing, we'll get there. Somebody sent one of our coaches a tweet and, in jest, and said, "You obviously need more SEAL training." Yeah, okay, that's but at the end of the day, they've got some specimen. You saw the Stanleys of the world, and Tarzowski's not your normal 5. I mean, he's a 7-foot, 260-pound guy. And then you throw Jefferson in the mix. That's the focal point. If we're going to beat Arizona, we've got to get much better at that element. Now, we don't need to go over the top and create hand-to-hand combat for practice today, because we're not playing Arizona Wednesday. We're playing Washington State, who's a really high-powered offensive team. Ernie Kent's done a great job. So I think it wouldn't be really intelligent to, again, as I got back to Kyle's answer, we've got to stick with what we're doing, figure out how to win the next game, but at the same time, we know we need to get tougher.
What can you tell me about Devonte Lacy and your experience with him in China over the summer?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'd start with non-basketball related stuff. He's as solid as a kid as I've come around in a long time, really mature. We spent a lot of time off the basketball court together, kind of gravitated toward each other. He was one of those guys that it stands for a lot of things we talk about in our program. Is really outgoing, and he was in China. He was one of the favorites for everybody. He was setting an example and trying to represent not only himself, Washington State, our conference, and our country over there, but he really, you can tell where he's a special kid. Was great amongst our players. I think he took a leadership role with our guys. And not an ounce of selfishness in him, but just stands for a lot of the right stuff. And he's having a tremendous senior year there at Washington State. He's got a lot of pride, and terrific shooter, one of the leading scorers in our league, and we're going to have our hands full with him.